Non-traditional learners are now the majority in US higher education. That image of what might have consisted of a traditional student 15, 20 years ago is no longer the case. Non-traditional learners are the new majority, and the modern student needs modern support. Who is the new majority? Well, on screen you'll see some of the demographics that make up what we're referring to as the new majority. They're what would have been termed as non-traditional in the past. So they're working while studying. Sometimes they are parents in education. Sometimes they're veterans. They might have a higher awareness of their neurodiversity. They might have a disability, English as a second language. They might be the first in their families to attend higher education. If you take a look at these characteristics on the screen, you'll be able to visualize students on your campus, and you'll know that these are not edge cases anymore. This is the majority of students in higher education in 2026. So let's take a look at some of the figures. The most notable thing we're seeing in the data is that the new majority is here to stay. Like I said, we're going to take a look at in a sec at our 2025 figures and how they differ this year. But what we can note is that certain populations seem to be on the rise, even on a year-by-year basis. There's a significant increase in the number of students with disabilities, or those who are reporting they have a disability at least, and in those over the age of 22, what we might refer to as a mature student. So over 40% of students in higher education today in the US are over the age of 22. Almost 70% of them work while studying. Around 30% of learners are first generation students. They're the first in their family to attend higher education. And just shy of 20% have English as an additional language. If we look at each cohort of the new majority in turn, you'll see that the data in 2026 paints a similar picture to last year. You'll note that a lot of the data is marked as NA. Please note that the 2026 data was not available for some characteristics owing to the publishing cycles of the IPEDS and MPSAS studies. For more information, you can check out the methodology section of the report. But what we can see is that the broad picture is much the same. Some cohorts are slightly reduced. Veterans and transferring students are down a little bit, and some are slightly increased. Disabled students and mature students. What is clear is that these populations are here to stay. It's just part of the makeup of higher education nowadays. And as part of this research, we've been able to not only estimate the populations of these students across the US, we've also been able to estimate them on an institution by institution basis. So if you're interested in learning more about the new majority at your institution, we can provide you with a brief data sheet that gives you what we find from our research and our estimates. So answer the poll if you want to receive that information for your institution. So I guess the question is, how do we approach improving support for these groups of students? It's vital for educators to understand both their characteristic nuances for individual cohorts, but also their shared experiences. How can we provide this sort of support that these students need at scale? And in our research, we looked into the core challenges that different cohorts of the new majority face, and we grouped them into these three overarching categories. These groups are based on traits that often align with one another to form the lived experience and shared challenges of these learners. So we've grouped them into these three groups. The first is the time poor learner. This includes working students, part-time students, student parents, students facing economic hardship. These are students who are unable to devote enough time to studying due to other responsibilities, such as children, other dependents, and the need to work to get by financially. They need support to balance their time effectively so that they can succeed in their studies whilst maintaining other responsibilities. And I'm sure you can picture some of these students on your campus. The second group we looked at was the underprepared learner. This includes first generation students, mature students, veterans, students who can enter education lacking the necessary study skills to succeed, maybe because of the time spent between K-12 and starting in higher education, maybe because they don't have the support system around them that students who come from a family of people who've been through higher education might have. These students, they need support to successfully integrate into higher education study and achieve their potential. And the third group is the learner with individual barriers. This includes students with English as a second language, students who are immigrants, neurodivergent students, and students with disabilities. They may have issues with concentration, attention, cognitive overload. They may be experiencing stigma. They may lack confidence and feel stressed about studying. And they need support to be able to study like their peers without barriers, without standing out, and achieve their potential. These are the challenges the new majority face, and in broad strokes, the support they need to succeed. So, what does this mean for institutions? Well, put simply, what worked before won't necessarily work now. While each of these identifying characteristics can identify an individual as a new majority learner, we've got to remember that there's intersectionality between these traits. A time poor learner may also be underprepared. If you've got a first generation learner who is also a parent, they've got those additional pressures of responsibilities outside of their studies, but they also might not have the support network that other students might have in terms of people who can help them understand how to study effectively in higher education. Each learner faces unique challenges and opportunities in the higher education journey, and the reality for the new majority is that without an evolution in support mechanisms, these barriers risk becoming insurmountable. And it's why these cohorts are at a higher risk of stopping out than traditional students. So the question becomes, how can we reshape a system geared towards traditional learners? As we approach that question, I think there's a couple of good self-reflective questions you can ask yourself. Um, the first of which might be, where can our support be proactive rather than reactive? Nowadays with analytic models and early warning systems, we have things in place to help identify at-risk students. But often, once a student becomes at risk, it's too late to help them turn things around. So the question is, how can we be proactive in our support for these cohorts of the new majority? How can you ensure your early warning systems kick in before a student's in trouble? How can you offer support before a student gets into a tricky situation? The second question I might encourage you to ask yourself is, are we too reliant on student self-advocacy? Are we too reliant on students knowing that they need help, knowing that it's okay to ask for help, knowing who to ask for help? How much better would the student experience be if the tools and support they needed was available to them before they even had to ask for it? The third question I'd encourage you to ask is, do we already have useful systems and tools available that are siloed within departments? Are there student support tools that can be rolled out to broader groups of students? And as an example, a 2024 research study from the US Department of Education explored not only the importance of assistive technology for students with disabilities, but also its role throughout the educational life cycle. Disability support services is a really good example of a department that spends every day serving students who need additional support, often with technology. Speak with them and other departments on campus who do this. What tools do they use that could be broadened out? Are there approaches that they take that could be copied and tweaked to make sense with supporting other populations as well? And Genio Notes is one such tool that helps you scale support for the new majority. We're already working with over 1,000 institutions to do just this. We're built for these kind of new majority students, and institutions see results. And this is an example of the kind of results that we're driving, or rather, we're helping Volunteer State Community College to drive. And I know that we've got Mary from Vol State on the call here today. So, hey, Mary, shout out to you because you're the one enabling this for your students. They have over 1,300 students using Genio Notes, and 89% of students reported they felt more confident. And not only that, they proactively engaged their research department and were able to draw lines between students using Genio Notes and improved persistence rates. So I share that just to show that working with asking these questions and finding other resources on campus can be a great way to help scale support for the new majority. So ask those questions. To conclude my little presentation here, I want to share three practical recommendations that you can bring to your college to either get the ball rolling or to supercharge your efforts to support your new majority learners. First is equip students with technology to amplify your impact. Look for evidence-based, research-backed tools like Genio Notes that have been proven to increase confidence, reduce stress, and improve academic performance. Leaders that proactively provide tools needed to succeed will significantly improve the lives of new majority learners, both inside and outside the classroom. Second, I'd ask you to empower learners with considered AI. The report dives more fully into this, but with the proliferation of AI, we need to be careful about how we're providing it to students. 92% of undergraduates are already using AI tools, but only 36% are receiving support to develop AI skills. Tools should always help to scaffold the learning process for students, facilitating proactive participation while maintaining the right level of productive friction. Institutions that find this balance will enable their new majority learners to overcome the challenges while retaining the opportunity to learn and grow. And finally, encourage evolution in your student support systems. What worked before won't necessarily work again. Evolving student support systems and expanding opportunities to access them will enable institutions to improve all manner of new majority learner outcomes, from increased retention, overall academic achievement, to student well-being and academic self-efficacy. So that's a quick dive into the New Majority Learner Report 2026. There's more in depth in the full report. You're going to receive it via email, but it's also in the chat now if you want to access it.